Hey guys, Janet here, aka Gameonysus, and today we are talking about EA's E3 2018 press conference, aka EA Play. Now, just right out the gate, EA gets a lot of flack from the community basically all the time, and certainly the loot boxes fiasco with Battlefront did not help that, but just in general, people just hate EA. They're just angry all the time. They can't stand realistic sports sims. For some reason, everyone overlooks EA Originals, which is like one of the coolest things EA does and a really awesome thing just in games in general. But we're just going to get into kind of what was discussed, thoughts on the things that have come up, the trailers that were shown, the games that were brought up. So we started out the gate with Battlefield 5, which got announced that they have a Battle Royale mode. And generally, like, with this press conference and probably with how all the conferences are going to go, it's a lot of, like, announcements. I just announced this. And then just kind of staring at the crowd, who begrudgingly, like, claps. Or, you know, sometimes there's genuine excitement, but just a very, like, awkward time. So, you know, like, the Battlefield people were like, hey, it's something you guys have been wanting for a long time. Battle Royale mode.
And as part of that journey, after launch, you'll get something I know a lot of you have been asking for.
It's Royale.
And it was just like very lukewarm. So we'll see how that pans out. We'll see if Battle Royale ends up being a trend. A lot of people are going to say it's already a trend, but I'm just wondering like how many games are going to be incorporating this into their actual games. And with this launching out E3, it's looking like that is going to be officially the move. So we'll see what happens with all of that. FIFA 19 was brought up as it is every year, and they mentioned that this next installation is going to have the UEFA Champions League as kind of a mode you can play, whether you're doing it in like a team capacity or even if you're doing it during the campaign mode as Alex Hunter. It's just going to take like a role. As far as gameplay and nitty-gritty stuff, they mentioned they're going to talk more about that during the summer, but of course what they always kind of pitch is that you'll have more control of the pitch. So I'm really looking forward to that. I buy FIFA every year. I've been buying it every year since the 2016 release, and I've loved it, and it's gotten better each time. So I'm really looking forward to that, seeing what little differences they end up making, what improvements they come up with. They also mentioned that they have the World Cup DLC, which is just free with the game, which is awesome. It's such an amazing DLC. Like, I would definitely pay for that. It is so worth money, but they just give it to you for having the game, which I think is really cool. And they mentioned that it's going to be free and playable starting today. I'm not really sure how long that's going for. And once again, they mentioned that, and everyone was just kind of like, but, you know, that happens. One other thing that was mentioned as well was the streaming service that EA has. So that's like been a thing for a while, this idea that you can kind of get like a subscription service and be able to play like games through that subscription service. And a lot of people have that subscription service. I said subscription service a lot, and now it's hard to say. That was just kind of whatever. Doesn't really affect me or interest me very much to do that with how I game, or just, you know, I feel like it's so easy to have like all these little monthly bills that I'm just not interested in that at all. But it is interesting in the sense that we all know there's been a lot of conversations about what the future of console gaming is and whether or not there actually is a future. And kind of streaming will be the end of consoles. So like for them to kind of bump this is, you know, following along those same lines. And we definitely have seen console gaming try to get not killed, but significantly changed in, you know, if you guys remember back when Microsoft first talked about the Xbox One, they like wanted it, they were very like digital centric, very much you got to be online all the time, and we pushed back on that as gamers until they backed up out of it. But now we kind of like know their truth, right? And I think a lot of people in the games industry do want it to go that way. They don't want to keep making consoles, they don't want to keep making physical. So we'll see how that pans out. Certainly I love consoles. I'm a console gamer priority. I don't even care if it's inferior to PC. Doesn't bother me at all. I love consoles and I love my physical media. So in a weird way, I think me not getting stuff like this helps keep it alive anyway. So that's just kind of my thoughts on the whole subscription service gaming thing. Then we went over to Vince with the Star Wars team, And it was just really like a really, really, really uncomfortable interview. Oh, by the way, Andrea Renee was the host of EA's press conference this year, and I think she did a pretty good job. I love her as like a content creator and as a games journalist, and just as generally as like a woman in games doing cool stuff. But yeah, that interview was just really, really bad. Like, he just didn't really have anything to say, and it was a lot of like, it was just really awkward. And the questions were really like easy toss-up questions, yet the responses still seemed just like super strange.
So the Star Wars name is Jedi Fallen Order.
Woo! So Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, so it kind of gives you some idea that you'll be playing a Jedi.
So does that mean I get to like hold a lightsaber?
Yes.
So Vince, you got anything else?
Well, it takes place during the Dark Times. Trying to be a little vague here, but when the Jedis are being hunted, so it's going to be spectacular.
So for all the hardcore nerds out there who want to know like where in the timeline, like between which episodes is it?
Between 3 and 4.
Okay, all right, between 3 and 4. That sounds like a nice time. You got any other tidbits?
No, it's not a nice...
It's a dark time.
It's a dark time.
Bad time. Does that mean it's going to just be all dark and serious?
It's amazing.
All right, so I think people are now anxiously want to know, like, when can we play the game?
It will be holiday of next year, 2019, not this year.
So that was uncomfortable. Then we got a reveal that we actually had an announcement of it a few hours before the press conference, but there is an Unravel 2. Shout out to the Unravel team, because we went from like this very awkward Star Wars interview thing, and it was just kind of a reminder of how sometimes I feel like games people just are so not eloquent and just are not good at selling their stuff or talking about their work, and it's painful at times. And I'm like, why are you so bad at this? Like, can we just get someone else to do this part of the job? But we went from something really awkward with Star Wars to something just so moving with the Unravel pitch. It was incredible.
In Unravel, we used yarn to symbolize love and the bonds between people. In our new game, we tear that bond up right at the start. You lose everything, including your spark. But when things are at their darkest, you find hope. And you form a new bond. And your spark is rekindled. And it leads you off on an adventure. So welcome to Unravel 2. It's a game about fresh starts and second chances. These two little souls who refuse to give up and who build something new and beautiful together. And the whole game is inspired by that spirit of optimism and togetherness. You see, it's all made to be played with two characters. You can play it alone, or you can play it in co-op with a friend, but there's always two characters there, sharing one yarn and working together to get through this adventure. This game, it's quite different from the first. It's both friendlier and more challenging, but above all, it's a lot more playful. And we think it's a worthy successor.
So immediately I was like, wow, like I'm totally bought in. And you'll have an extra little pal for that campaign. So you can either do it single player and just control both characters, or you can do it co-op, which is really cool. And I think will add like something fresh to the game, because I liked Unravel when I first played it, but the idea of them having a second one, it was kind of like, well, what are they going to do with it? So I think co-op was like the logical choice, and also was going to end up being like a fun decision in terms of the puzzle solving element. They're also trying to incorporate more like speedy sequences, like kind of more chase sequences where you have to kind of like quickly go between these little scenes where you're getting like chased by large animals, which we've seen in Unravel, like the first Unravel as well. They also showed off some gameplay footage and went ahead and straight up did the co-op live on stage, which, you know, I know they made the game, but I'm like, oh my God, this is so stressful. And the whole time I was watching it, I was just like, but it went over really smoothly, which was impressive and really just showed off what the game's going to be. It looks like it's going to be kind of more of the same, but honestly, I really liked Unravel, so I don't mind just having more of the same. Continuing down with EA Originals, we had Sea of Solitude, which is slated to release early next year, and this game looks gorgeous. I love that art style where it's kind of like a little bit cartoony, but sort of like with that pastel look, and, you know, not afraid to go with like these, this diverse range of colors, but then also bring in like monochromatic elements when you have like these darker sequences. So I thought that was really cool, and just the overall premise of the game was also really intriguing. It's all about loneliness. There was this amazing quote from the developer that was, when humans get lonely, they become monsters, and it just was like so hard-hitting, and I think it's just like a very like a genuine storyline to be going through, and I'm just really intrigued by it. Like, the dev even described it as being not really a made-up story because it's so close to home for the team and like things that people experience in general, but that it takes place just in a fantasy world. I also like that she made it a point to mention that, like, if you're not into that whole like story thing, I know a lot of people have been kind of rolling their eyes at the whole trend of indie games tackling mental health issues, so like Celeste, you know, other games kind of along that line, or like games that, you know, address self-care. I don't really know why people are necessarily against that. I think some people look at it as maybe gimmicky, or they think it's kind of like trying too hard or something in terms of narrative. But I love how she mentioned, like, even if that is you and you're kind of turned off by approaching those themes, like, the game itself is also crafted in a way to just be enjoyable for the sake of the gameplay itself on its own. And if you're like most players, you're able to marry both of those elements and walk away with a really enriching experience, like we did see with Celeste, where the platforming was great, but the story was also equally great. Then they cut, like, right afterwards to NBA Live and Madden, and, like, the contrast was so sharp. Like, they needed, like, someone needed to come on stage. Like, they just jumped straight to it. It was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortably sharp of a contrast. So they, you know, just brought out NBA Live really quick. They had a quick thing on Madden. Just gonna truck through that because I don't really care too much about that. Like, I like FIFA, but I don't really play the other sports sims quite as much. Then we had a while spent on this mobile game called Command to Conquer Rivals, I think is the full name, Command to Conquer Rivals. And, you know, as far as like strategy games on your phone, I'm not really that familiar with that. It was just kind of something we watched. They had the whole like intense announcer thing saying everything that's happening on the screen, you know, and that was fine, but it just didn't really draw me in. And then we finally got to what a lot of people have been waiting for, which is Anthem, BioWare's new IP that a lot of people are, I don't know if this is positive or negatively calling BioWare's Titanfall, just because of, like, just quickly glancing at the gameplay and the whole fact that you're in that, like, suit thing. It just has, like, Titanfall vibes to it. So they went ahead and did a deep dive into that. They took some questions from the audience, but you could tell from Twitter, but you could tell the questions were just like really basic and just not really adding much to the conversation. Like, oh, how can I customize my character? Or, you know, will there be loot boxes? Ooh, there won't. Or, like, you can buy stuff in the game, actually, but you always know what you're buying, so it's still kind of, so I guess there are still microtransactions is kind of what they made it sound like potential ones, just cosmetic, but not at all gameplay related, which, you know, I think is fine. The big thing they were talking about, though, in terms of the game and the development and what they're trying to produce with this game is really being able to have a strong story while having multiplayer elements, which I do think is just going to be a challenge in general, but they mentioned that they don't want this to be an MMO with the story on the side or slapped on the side, which I think is a really great statement to make, and I think speaks to what we often see with MMO games, where the story is an afterthought. Even when the story is good, it just feels like it's not really what the game is at its core. So I'm interested to see how they're able to bring in story as like the core element with multiplayer on the side and not end up flipping those two. I'm not sure how much of that is on the development team and how much of that is on the community and what they end up being drawn to. Like, is it a negative if this ends up being more of an MMO type thing? I'm not really sure. They didn't discuss romances at all, which a lot of people on Twitter were like, who can I romance? So that was, I think, frustrating for a lot of audience members and a lot of BioWare fans. But overall, Gameplay seems fine. I can't really say it's my thing, but generally people seem satisfied with what they've been seeing. They did mention in terms of the multiplayer element that it's easier when you team up, so like it'll be harder to go through the campaign completely on your own. But that's totally possible and like not too hard, but it is like a little bit harder. So that's kind of to be expected, but I guess it's a little bit concerning and like what exactly is the difference gonna be, but the development team did say that when they were making the game they thought about that and tried to address that in the design. So hopefully those of you who want to venture out on your own in Anthem can do that and have a comparable experience to the people that are teaming up with other people. So that's about it. A solid start to E3. You know, EA is never the most exciting conference that happens. That's always going to be one of the big three, aka Nintendo, PlayStation, or Xbox. But you know, there are a couple of little things to be excited about, especially if you're like me and love that EA original stuff. It is so great. I love the stuff they produce. EA Originals is just like one of my favorite things ever, and I feel like it's so underrated and not enough of you guys talk about it and tell EA how it's dope, and we should, you know, be talking about that a little bit more. So go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, guys. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be posting reaction videos to all the major conferences that are taking place during E3 2018. Comment down below and let me know what your biggest takeaway from EA's press conference was and what you're looking forward to for the rest of E3. I will see you guys here next time. Bye.